Hey all, welcome back to the All Star Wars YouTube channel. Welcome back to the Andor After Show. This is our second week of doing the
Woo!
Andor After Show for season 2. And we're going to be talking about episodes 4, 5, and 6. Again, they're releasing this in a bunch. And so we got a bunch to talk about. We're covering episode 4 called Ever Been to Gorman. Episode 5, I Have Friends Everywhere. And episode 6, of course, what a festive evening, right? So we have a lot to talk about. Obviously, when we
Mhm.
talk about spoilers, so beware. My friend Cassian back there is keeping an eye on us and the conversation and you. And he's making sure that if you haven't subscribed already, go subscribe right now.
Go
Because we
subscribe.
still have 2 weeks left of Andor after show, maybe a week after, to do a post-mortem assessment of the entire series. Because at that point, we would have the entire series at our palm. So we're going to be having a lot of conversation about that. But joining me again is none other than Parks Artor himself. Parks, welcome onto the program again as our co-host for the
Woo!
Andor After
Woo,
Show.
woo, woo, woo. Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be back. Talk more Andor. And boy, we have so much to talk about. What a surprise.
Yes, yes, we do. Yes, we do. It's been a great time to be a Star Wars fan at the moment. Like we got, not to
Hmm.
show this off, but I got my Revenge of the Sith.
My roommate got that. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. I got
Yep.
this cup. I got the Vader bucket, the popcorn bucket
Hmm.
up there. I just
Oh,
remembered. Yeah, it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan. I went to go see the movie twice now. Probably see it. I'll definitely
nice.
see it again, at least one more
Hmm.
time before it exits theaters. But doing, it's funny how people say that, oh, there's been a lot of discussion after last week's arc with Andor and talk about um how the empire isn't the same from the movies, and it's like, you really watch what the emperor set in motion in Revenge of the Sith, and you're gonna tell me that the empire that we see, the angle
Hmm.
that we see in Andor, is not capable, that the empire in Revenge of the Sith is not capable of what
Killing
they're
all the
doing.
Jedi, killing children, taking over the Senate. Like, yeah, no, it's very on par. Like, we're just taking it more seriously than we ever have.
Yes.
It is still the same empire.
No, absolutely. And even
Yeah, yeah.
even the ideas introduced in the original trilogy, it's like, when Tarkin mentions that the Senate has been eradicated or has been
Right.
uh, dispelled or whatever.
Hmm.
What do you think that means for an empire? That means they have an unruling hand, that they can do whatever they want. That
Yeah.
nobody's gonna really stop them. So it's like, well, we're seeing that kind of effect. I mean, the Senate is in motion here, but
Hmm.
I mean, we'll talk about some of the Senate scenes we saw, but the Senate is kind of really non-existent at this point. It's just kind of playing for like, kind of like a wall decoration at this point. So
Right, right. It's like the Senate being useless is very much a feature of this whole thing. I think honestly, one line, uh, you know, Revenge of the Sith, for what it's worth, has some moments that go, "Oh, this is just like Andor," just here and there.
yeah, right, right.
I think one line that stuck to mind, like, was kind of when Obi-Wan is heading back to Coruscant with Yoda, and they're talking to Bail Organa on the ship before landing on the surface, and he says something like, "Palpatine won't get rid of the Senate. He'll never be able to like make this." Take power without
Yes.
them, something to that effect. And it's like, oh yeah, like the Senate, their whole kind of favoritism for Palpatine here is like the fact that they're getting to go on this ride with him into this glorious empire, and they're all gonna benefit from the spoils. And we could easily turn this into a Revenge of the Sith podcast, but it just goes to show, like, yeah, no, there's obviously there's just so many connections here. Andor is just kind of taking them and putting a big old magnifying glass on them.
Yes, exactly, and that's what the TV series have done. Clone Wars set that in motion back in 2008, and when
Hmm.
it ended in 2014, and then got picked up again.
Yeah.
But it was a magnifying glass to everything that was
And I
going
don't know
on.
about you, but there were moments in these episodes that reminded me of
Yes.
very specific scenes. Yeah, we'll
Yep.
talk about them. Like
Yep.
things that were in the Clone Wars where I'm like, oh yeah, like they're speaking the same language. Andor just
Yes.
is has even more to say on top of that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
so let's get into it. What were your overall thoughts? We had 3 episodes. We had longer run times this
Yeah.
time around. And I was
Longer.
just invested. I mean, I always am with this show, but my God, there's a lot to take in. And
Hmm.
again, this show taught me have your damn subtitles on, because if you don't have them on,
Yes.
you're gonna miss a lot.
Ooh, yes,
So if you're not watching
absolutely.
with subtitles, I suggest you do so, because there's visual learners and there's people that learn that are better learners at hearing things, and I'm both. I'm definitely both, but I need to see it, and then I comprehend it that way. So when I'm reading the lines, it makes it easier for me to
Yeah.
comprehend. Some people can just hear it and understand, but for me, I got to read it. So sometimes I'm missing things that are happening visually. I'm like just
Mhm.
reading I'm like, wait, I got to look up. It's like when
Yeah.
you're first driving and you're just looking at like the road ahead of you. It's like, nope, you got to look up, like look at the bigger picture. So
Yeah,
I got to
yeah,
keep
yeah.
doing this with the show. But this show is so juicy, it's so thick.
Ooh,
So
ooh.
what were your thoughts on the first 3 episodes? I mean,
So
these three
so
middle
juicy.
episodes, juicy.
Um, no, I mean, once again, love these episodes. I think for me, in terms of like my hype and enjoyment and just like the entertainment value of it all, I think last week's episodes are a bit better, but this was a different kind of enjoyment where it's like, oh, as I'm sinking my teeth into this thing, I'm realizing, oh my God, there's different flavors here. There's kind of just a different experience overall. This is the most like espionage we've ever gone with Andor, I think, and just in Star Wars in general, like with Cassian taking on this like a spy identity and having a cover and doing that sort of thing. This some implied lore about the kinds of missions that he does and that whatnot. But at the same time, you also have a character like why am I blanking on his name right now? Cyril Karn, who is also doing his own sort of spy operation for the Empire, and the way that's done is so fascinating and intricate. And there's the is he going to be radicalized? Is he with them? That I thought along the way. Ultimately, in the end, it's very clear he's with them. But then there's some interesting moments that make you go, well, wait, hang on. Is he like, does he know what they're really doing here? That sort of thing. Um, yeah, no, I mean, we had a whole thing with Clea and Luthen with their kind of listening device that they had to do with Dava Skolden's art gallery. We got a little bit with Saw Gerrera that was kind of interesting. It's very different. Like by now, it's like now that we're really into this skipping forward a year approach. It is the show is moving a bit differently than it used to. A lot like you're going a bit deeper with things. You're getting a lot more things going on at once, and so that can be a little hard to keep up with, especially since we're dropping all three of these at a time. It's so much to take in, but for what it's worth, I mean, there's just so much there. You can see where they're building things and they're building towards it in fascinating ways. We're getting these awesome moments with characters, some great payoff for certain characters like Bix, some tragedy with other characters. Yeah, no, this show just continues to be just the biggest ball of yarn, and the way we're continuing to unravel it and spool it, it is just so fascinating as a viewer to kind of just go along with. Yeah, and yeah, it's just really awesome once again. What did you think of this week's episodes, Mike?
Yeah, I love everything that you're saying. I think that's a great analogy, a big ball of yarn. And it just feels like we keep untangling things each episode, really. For me, I was like, you definitely felt the notable year jump, and I was like,
Yeah.
I literally for a split second, I literally thought that Cyril and Dedra had parted ways, and that was no
Hmm.
longer a thing. And I'm like, well, I could see how that was short lived.
They had me fooled as well. Yeah.
And I really thought, I'm like, oh, is he changed? Is he really really gonna having these feelings towards the Empire? And they fooled me. I'm like, why did I even believe that this
Yeah. Yeah.
muck would even
Hmm.
have those thoughts? Um, this bootlicker, right? But
Hmm.
yeah, no, I that they had me fooled for a second, but in terms of the other stories, I'm like, wow, like I don't know, like a lot of the reviews said that this was some of the best Star Wars they've seen, if not the best. But they were like, wow, like this new format it kind of took some getting used to, because you were season one, even though it felt like separated stories, right? It still felt interconnected because it was all tied back to Ferrex.
Yeah.
And now here it's kind of just you're taking things in chunks, and it's still connected, but in a different way.
You got to lock in on the characters because we're going to be
Right.
going all different kinds of places. I mean, we spend a lot of time on Gorman here, but we won't be on Gorman forever. So you
No.
really got to lock in on the characters and what they're going through to follow them through these like 4 years we're going through.
Right. And I honestly thought the climax of this arc was the Gorman massacre. So I was waiting for it. I thought that was going to be the third episode, but I'm like, oh, okay. I was pleasantly surprised with the climax that we got anyway in the third episode. But yeah, all or in the sixth episode really. But oh my God, just there's a lot of things to appreciate from here. Loved all the snooping around that kind of Sarah was doing. It kind of gave a
It was
little.
kind of fun.
It was kind of fun. It was like, okay, like I feel wrong for going along with this journey, but I'm gonna take it for what it is.
I love the acting bit when the Imperials kind of sweep his office for listening devices, and he's like he kicks the computer. He's like,
oh
we put it here apparently, and then just
oh, that was great.
Yeah.
I don't. That setup reminded me a lot of the TVA from Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh sure,
Movie.
I see that.
But I was just like, wait, I'm feeling reminiscent of something, and then I thought of that. But yeah, that was a funny bit where he kicked the thing, and everyone thought he was serious. But I thought that was cool. I mean, this show is very detailed in ways that they show you things like we talked about last week. I love the way that one employee was like, she was like, oh shoot, they're like here, and she was like tapping like cold red, and then they went back to the scene that we were just on with everyone underground listening, and they're like disconnecting the wires, like, oh shoot, they're onto us. I was like, oh man, like that was really cool to see, because I felt like any other show would have been like, they would have even showed you them scrambling to take the wires out or disconnect or lose the signal or something. It just would have been like, but it was just really cool to see. Love the Coruscant stuff too. We got Cassian and Bix living together, they're in an official relationship.
A steamy romance there. Ooh.
Steamy romance. Let's not talk about the lights being turned off though with Dedra and Sarah.
Very much the opposite. Very much not a good vibe.
No, it was all the nasty weird vibes. But and Luthen, just when I was like, man, I really love Luthen. He came here to check up on Bix to see how she's doing, and I was like, wait, no, that's not Luthen. He always has the motive, the cause is always at the forefront of whatever he's doing. And then I was like, oh, I just got kind of grimy with Luthen, and I love that Cassian and Luthen. These episodes took time to show you that yes, they're fighting for the cause, but they're fighting in different ways, and they have different priorities in the cause. So I was like, dang, like that's really cool to see, because I felt like in something like Rebels, that's it's obviously a lot more. It's not as complex as this. But even in Rebels, we kind of see that they showed you different angles. Just when you thought like, oh yeah, we're all fighting for the rebellion, then we saw it, and he has different motives, and he has different ideologies in the rebellion. And I'm like, oh, I just felt like we're scratching the surface with that. And then we dive into something Andor that can show us those ideologies. I'm like, oh man, that's so dope. So that was really cool to see Cassian and Luthen kind of not be on the same page, and it put me on the edge of my seat where I'm like, oh shoot, let me not be sitting back enjoying this. Let me sit up and be paying attention and be ready for whatever's going to happen. So I was like on the edge of my seat. So overall, obviously these 3 episodes, I don't even know what I like better. Last week's, I think last week was a better flow of the stories together, and I felt like the climax was really powerful with with Brassel's death, and then we had Mon Mothma having her white girl moment at her drunk white girl moment, which I thought was great.
That was an iconic moment.
It was iconic that Star Wars YouTube, they released an hour version of her just dancing. So if you don't know, if you're ever bored, just go to that video and be like, you know what, life isn't so sad and depressing. It's actually fun. So go do that whenever you're feeling down. Yeah, I know I have already.
If you feel like crashing out, just remember Mon Mothma crashed out one time, and then she went on to lead the rebellion.
Literally,
you follow your dreams.
Oh my, follow your dreams, right? So now we're gonna take a more detailed approach into our conversations, and Parks here took notes and did us all the beautiful favor of sitting there and taking notes, and so he's gonna lead us in our discussion of Andor tonight. So I'm gonna pass this over to Parks. He's gonna lead us through, because there's many things to talk about. So
oh yes,
Parks is going to lead us through, and then we're going to both give our take on it and add anything else that's not in his very detailed notes. So, Parks, I'm passing on the baton to you. Take us away, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Let's see how I do with this. So we start off with episode 4, which was titled Ever Been to Gorman? Ever Been to Gorman. So that was the one thing I didn't take a note on, was the episode titles. But yeah, so thank you. You got my back on that. So we start off with once again Dr. Gorst. This man is back. Poor Bix. It's been a year, 1 year later, but her and Cassian are living in this Coruscant apartment together. It's like Luthen's safe house, and with that, this sort of vision she has of Dr. Gorst is not real, but he's torturing this this rebel soldier. It's someone that Cassian and Bix knew, and later on in the episode we learned that apparently it was someone Cassian had to kill. And Cassian seems to be kind of coping with that guilt in a certain way, but Bix is not doing so well with it. And so she's very clearly racked by PTSD. Mike, your reaction to seeing Bix go through all of this, how was that?
I thought it was an extension from what we seen last week, where now we see that she's having. We saw that her first scene in last week's first episode, she had trouble sleeping. She was having like a nightmare, and I thought that was a great introduction. But here it was more like we were experiencing the day-to-day anxieties that she deals with, and Luthen pointed out, it doesn't help out that you're in this safe house, that you're locked down and kind of feeling claustrophobic of everything, or overwhelmed, overstimulated with Coruscant. So that doesn't help. But I legit was like, wow, this is kind of horrific in a way to see her and dealing with the anxieties and post trauma that she's dealing with. But I thought it was unique because it made it all worth it at the end. To jump ahead at the very last scene of the arc, where I was like, yeah, like
we all needed that payoff.
We did. Yeah. She suffered enough, and I was like, yeah, hell yeah. Like I like just tightened my fist, and I was like, I felt so empowered after that moment. So, well, this was all like really like dense stuff. It was a great payoff at the end, where I was like, yeah, like it was worth being in the trenches with her and struggling. And I've had those moments where I like wake up at night and I'm just like, I stare out the window. Like, I mean, in my younger ages, like, I would wake up and just stare out the window just because I don't even know what. It's just people go through different things, and sometimes you can't sleep and you would just be up all night while everyone else in the household was sleeping, and you'd be looking out or just listening to something. Not even watching TV, but just taking in the silence of the night and trying to.
And there's a lot of that on Coruscant. I mean, there's like that one shot where I think he's trying to reassure Bix, and on that, like real quick, like I remember last episodes, it was like, she was referring to Cassian as her husband, but it was like that seemed like the kind of cover, at least, to make sure men like that one Imperial officer are not like, barking up the wrong tree. Clearly they care about each other in a deeper way, but they're in a full-on relationship here, which I think I was like kind of happy to see. And yeah, that shot of them hugging, and it kind of slowly zooms out from just their corner apartment on Coruscant. The safe house is like, it's cozy, but it's also kind of like a little dark, a little dingy. It doesn't feel like an entirely happy place. And I think they really like do a great job of making you realize just how like bad it is for Bix here. And it's a complicated thing. It's not just that she has like this trauma that she's dealing with, and is looking for like relief, and that Cassian's trying to protect her. It's that like, if she can't apply herself in any way towards like these bad causes in the world, like the nightmares are not going to get any better. And so that creates an interesting bit of tension for her and Cassian of like, you're like, I'm giving up so much. We're both giving up so much. Like, just let me go out there and do my thing. Like, you don't have to keep me at arm's length. Don't have to worry about losing me. Let's just put it all on the line together. Which I think is pushing Cassian himself a bit more towards like this, let's, sacrificial mindset of like, let's burn down the Empire, even if it means we lose our life, that sort of thing.
Right.
So, yeah, no, seeing their relationship was really interesting this episode. I guess to kind of talk fully about where that goes in this episode, like a quote I wrote that I really liked, talking about that kind of thing of like what they're giving up. Bix writes, "If I'm giving up everything, I want to win. We have to."
Mm.
Just her arguing with Cassian. Cassian at some point later in the episode gets a flashing signal on the Coruscant skyline. This is apparently when Luthen needs Cassian for a mission. They'll see this signal and meets up with Luthen. Luthen tells Cassian he needs to go to Gorman. So that's a great transition here for Gorman, which we're going to spend a majority of our time here talking about. Probably these 3 episodes are all about Gorman, and we're probably going to see even more Gorman in the next arc. We're definitely going to see more Gorman in the next arc. But yeah, I before we get like into particulars of characters here and whatnot, like Mike, what was your reaction to Gorman? Just seeing this place, all the characters, the vibes, the language.
Yeah.
The Gorman
Well,
experience.
oh no, we'll do that. We'll do that at the end of the show when it's like see or like what was the saying behind that? The guys doing this.
Oh God, what was it? I
Like
don't remember.
it was
Yeah,
like something like "see you later," like think I don't know, something like that. I loved it though. I was like, oh shit, like that's so cool. I don't know it. To me, it felt very thought out. Love the scenery of everything. It just felt like we were on Chandrilla, but a very different Chandrilla. It just looked
yeah.
very eloquent.
Hmm.
And I don't know, like to me, there's facets that I was just like, man, like this is so good to see, like on Star Wars television. Things that I was just like, this is so eye appealing. And learning about the Tarkin massacre was very interesting because I don't know
Is that
if
sorry to interrupt real quick? Is
no
that
no
something in books or canon or anything
yeah
like that?
that's I'll look it up, but I thought I might have heard something like that before,
Yeah,
but I wasn't too sure. But talking about that monument that they did was really interesting, and I was like, wow, like the way they explained it too, where I was like, oh shoot, and the conflict that they were building a imperial building or complex that was going to overshadow the
hmm
memorial site. I was like, wow, like this feels like such a something that we'd hear here on Earth about something like that happening with
yeah.
you
Like
know
they're building a government building next to this memorial for I don't know, maybe like some human rights activist, and
yes
it's causing a bit of a stir because
right
this government facility is like, tainted by, whoever's currently in charge, that sort of thing. Um, yeah, no, there's a lot of things like that. I mean, this place is like space France, right? Like,
space yeah right that I literally was thinking of France when I was watching this, and I love the way they didn't just speak basic, they had a different language, and I was like cool, like because I'm like you forget how big the galaxy is, and yes these guys are human but not everyone speaks basic, like I love that they had a different language going on there.
yeah, I think I watched a little bit of like the declassified kind of little mini documentary they put on the YouTube channel for these episodes before we set up here, and I think
Oh,
yeah, they for Gorman, all of the kind of main actors we see, all the Gorman characters, are French actors, and what they did was basically like they took the French language and just changed all the words slightly. So when they're talking,
oh,
it has the cadence of French and when they're discussing and whatnot, but it's all slightly different, which that is such a Star Wars solution. I don't know. There's something about it that just feels so like, we not that we did the bare minimum, but we just took something from reality and we just changed it a little bit. And guess what?
yeah,
Now it's Star Wars,
no it's
like
Star Wars.
yeah, it's cool. Um, yeah, no, I love a lot of like I mean, it's just beautiful. Like, just again, that declassified thing is so worth watching just to see like the behind the scenes shots of like the sets and like how they built the entire kind of main plaza in like Pinewood Studios or whatever. Like, it's so beautiful. I love kind of how they have you can look on some walls and see like spiders incorporated in like some of the deco on the wall. It's really cool. Um,
Ooh.
and just like the details, like again we were talking about last week, but like something we just love about this show is just like the intricacy, the attention to detail, The fact that like we have a scene where Cassian is talking to, it's in the fifth episode, but he's talking to this bellhop who, as a kid, witnessed the Tarkin massacre. Um, and it just feels like this character just feels so real, and like this is something that they really deal with, but we're never going to see this character again, like guaranteed. It's like, wow, like how awesome the show can just kind of swoop in, give us a character like that, and then leave. It's so cool.
Legit, legit. And yeah, I mean I, with the Gorman setup that we got last week, and it's the tissue that I was kind of alluding to earlier with well, it's not we don't have like a home base like Ferrex like we did last season. There's just kind of this pass the baton or like the setup work that they kind of do, and last week I'm glad we learned about, because if we learned about the Gorman stuff here, it just would have felt very secluded story, and I'm glad we got some pretense to it earlier
Mm-hmm.
about about the spiders and the fabrics, and that way easily it was picked up here. And I love the way Cassian came in and played. I forgot the guy's name. It was a really catchy name too, and I just
It
forgot.
was oh boy, Varian Sky.
There you go, Varian Sky. I was like,
That's a great name.
it's
Yeah.
a great name. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, make a video game around that character. But Varian
Yeah.
Sky comes in, and I absolutely love the story that the intel was feeding Cassian to say. So I was like, yeah.
Hmm.
So it was
Real
cool
spy
to
stuff.
it literally, and when we went to that little bar restaurant, I was just like, oh man, I could have the whole episode here just be dialogue based, because I love what Cassian and that representative were talking about, and then they would speak in code kind of, or Cassian would be like, yeah, he's like, yeah, my fabrics, they're so beautiful, and that's why I'm here. But
Hmm.
you guys got to lay low, like you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
you're,
You're
you're you're
doing this
rushing.
so wrong. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love when he schools them. It's like the kind of different like
Yes.
the different versions of Rebels we're seeing. Like you're saying in Rebels, we get exposed to that a little bit over time, but just in this show, just like again, when we're getting into the really granular details of it, you have Saul and his partisans, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But just like the way the Gorman Front do things, they're led by a guy named Rylands, who is like a business owner
Hmm.
and is very out and about like we don't like the Empire, all for the Gormans, and it's like, yo, there's a lot of risks to operating on the level you do when you're that public facing of a figure. Like Cassian knows, he is not only works for Luthen, but lived through everything that happened on Ferrex, so like he knows what happens when, people get in very out and armed revolt. It's very dangerous. So yeah, no, that kind of clash of the clash of like there in that scene was really good. Um, but when we go to Gorman for the first time, we go there with none other than Cyril Karn, who has taken a promotion or has kind of taken up an assignment on this planet for the Bureau of Standards. This is all what we're told anyway. He has a wonderful conversation with his mom, who, despite our best efforts, we cannot escape. And he can't either. Uncle Harlow, always mentioning Uncle Harlow,
uh,
thinks this is a demotion, that apparently he threw away his relationship with Dedra. His mom is drunk on propaganda, like, oh, those Gorman people are mad. And for like going back to last week, it's like, oh God, like the Gorman propaganda is in full swing right now. Like that's scary. Um, yeah, and then we kind of see that, oh, Cyril is being spied on by people from the Gorman resistance, the Gorman Front, um, as sort of like a someone we could potentially recruit. Who they have this guy on the street who hands out spiders to tourists to pick him up. And as we're maybe as an audience going, wait, is Cyril like having some second thoughts about the Empire? Nope. We see him report back to Dedra. And yeah, no, apparently Dedra is using Cyril Karn to infiltrate the Gorman Front. Yeah.
which it, which turns around so much, by the way, but
Yeah, yeah.
which we later find out. But yeah, that was an interesting ploy that they did. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I thought that Cyril was totally having second doubts or second thoughts about the Empire. Where I'm like, yeah, it's a year jump. He's not with Dedra anymore. This makes sense. Maybe they had a falling out about stances on the Empire. I want to, and no, they got us good, and I love the establishing shot on Cyril where he was flanked by two spiders on his like little shelf, and I was like, oh my god, we're going to Gorman with Cyro. I'm like, this is cool. Again, that setup that was done last week with that with the spider chat, I'm like, cool. There's something with rebels and Andor and spiders, and I don't get it, but
it just works. Yeah,
it just works. But yeah, really, really good setup there. I ended up loving Cyro on Gorman. And like I said, I loved all the little spy stuff that he was doing, and it got really nerve-wracking when the ISB showed up, because I'm like, what's going on? And then later when he was with the Gorman front, they were like, are you, oh yeah, he's an Imperial spy. Wait, no, are you? And he just got all nervous and awkward. It was so funny to watch and everything. But yeah, the interaction with him and his mom, there was a quote later in the show about propaganda and how it's how everything starts or something like that. I should have wrote the quote down, but it was so good. I was like, oh my god, like I just want to, like, propaganda is like the foot in or something like that. It was something along those lines.
Yeah,
I was like, oh man, like that is the precursor to everything or something like that. And I was like, wow, that's really deep. So that was funny that his mom and him were talking about the propaganda front and everything. It's like, yeah. If his mom ended up running into the Emperor, she'd still act the way she does, and she'd be like, you know what, oh my son, and his uncle Harlow said,
yeah.
she drives me insane.
She is so good at just being a menace.
She's a menace.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Cyril stuff really fascinated me here. I don't think we get the reveal about Dedra for a while, maybe like towards the end of the episode.
Yes.
Because he infiltrates this, or no, we get it in the middle of the episode, but then we see him actually go to this Gorman meeting where we meet a couple of other key Gorman figures. Carl Rylands is the guy who leads the Gorman front. We're in the city of Palmo. There's some other characters here. Dylan is someone we spend a lot of time with. Enzo is the girl that Cassian meets in the little cafe. There is also the guy who recruits him on the street is named, I wrote down his name here somewhere. It's like Moshika or something like that. What was his name? Boy, I want to find it. Oh, it was Mashiko. And then the guy he quarrels with later on, we'll talk about that scene when we get to it, but Lezine. These are all people who are present at this Gorman meeting. It's very much like revolutionary underground vibes, like this is our secret underground den where we're talking about, like, here's the Nazi invasion going on and what are we going to do about it. We're the on the streets resistance. It reminded me a bit, I felt like a bigger scale version of it, but it reminded me a bit of like in Clone Wars on Onderon, when we get kind of the meetings in like the little den with Saw and Steel as rebels. In general, a lot of Onderon parallels here, I think, in these episodes. The idea of like this proxy war in a way, and like the role Valencenta will play later on feels very reminiscent of like, you see it, like
you nailed it.
Whatever that episode is, A War on Two Fronts, or the one that's after that. I'm not gonna remember that exactly, but yeah. And in that episode, there's sabotaging a tank and trying to infiltrate the palace. So it just feels very Clone Wars coded, even though I'm sure Tony Gilroy and his team came up upon this on their own. But no, it's really cool just seeing what they're talking about and what they're getting into. Cyril being like, they're just kind of way too trusting of him. And, Cassian maybe questions that later on, and they're just like, whatever, So yeah, no, we are portraying a very different version of rebellion here. And that only kind of continues as we go through. We get some... Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's almost go ahead. If we're seeing a progression of rebellion. If you go back to the first arc when we got to see the sloppy people in the jungle of Yavin 4, and not just not knowing what they were doing and completely amateurs. Like you just gave a kid a gun and was like, they're like, yeah, we're gonna fight, you know.
Mhm.
Where we talked about last week with the whole rock paper scissors thing,
Oh,
to
yeah, the
where
My
this
Pay
week,
Brigade,
yeah,
yeah.
the my paper brigade,
Brigade.
but
Yep, yep.
and then this week it feels like we're on that path of the Rebel Alliance that we see in, you know, episode 4
Mhm.
or even in Rogue One. But oh my god, still very, it's still, even though this is just like one cell, one group, it's still very disorganized and
Yes.
very amateurish, but it feels like a step up from that brigade that we were with. So maybe, you know, next, because what, it takes a year jump the next arc.
Yeah.
So we're gonna maybe, you know, see the Gorman front again and maybe see them a little bit more evolved. But it feels like we're
Mhm.
evolving with the rebellion. So I think that's even Andor feels a lot more seasoned, where he is the one kind of playing Luthen's um representative and meeting with people and being like, oh yeah, I think this would be a good group, I don't think this would be a good group, and
Yes.
giving advice where, you know, last season he just didn't really, he just did things for his own and his people, and now
Yeah.
it's just like, oh shoot, now there's the cause, right? And I completely agree with what you, I literally was sitting watching the episode and I was like, oh my god, this feels like an underground meeting on Onderon with Steele and Saw, with all the
Mhm.
partisans or whatever they're called. And I was like, great. I'm like, oh god, Parks, I already know he's gonna be like, it's that Clone Wars brain of yours. And I was like, I'm like, bro, I'm
Yeah.
like, I literally just watched all of Clone Wars.
Mhm.
I'm like, I think that's just the way my brain is wired. And then to see Cinta and
Vel.
Val,
Yeah.
I always forget Cinta's name, but for I guess I won't anymore. But Cinta and Val, they totally played the parts of Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka, you know, guiding them
Yep.
and just kind of taking a step back. So that's funny that you mentioned it, because
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page, because I was like, you mentioned it before we started recording. Well, you know, it
Mhm.
felt like it was Clone Wars coded. I'm like, I know what he's talking about. So maybe you guys all thought like that as well. Maybe not. Maybe thought of different examples. But yeah, there you go.
Well, to throw it over to another Clone Wars kind of comparison here really quick, in that first episode, we get like one sequence with Mon Mothma, but it's when she's talking to a bunch of senators trying to get votes.
Yes. Yes.
And not that, you know, there's one scene in Star Wars where this exact thing has happened, and it's also in the Clone Wars, in Pursuit of Peace, I
Yep.
believe, when
Yep.
Padme is talking to senators. And that's something you saw generally in that show. Maybe saying it was one scene is not true, but you saw I feel like there were a couple scenes anytime we catched up with Padme in the Senate where she's talking to a senator trying to get votes and that sort of thing. Obviously, this is how, you know, a democracy works or whatever, or, you know, a democracy in spirit, but not actually on paper, or on paper, but not in spirit, you know, however you want to word it. And yeah, Mon Mothma is just getting shut down by one senator after another, for very clear reasons. We don't get we get more Mon Mothma stuff at the end of this, but I think the next scene we kind of get with her is in the 6th episode. It's before we go to like the party. There is an sort of like um, a pledge of allegiance to the Empire in the Senate. I don't know if that's where your brain went. That's where my brain went. And it just sounds
Yeah.
awful. I wanted to write down some of it because it just sounds very like self-important, like a galaxy of worlds, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's horrendous, very
Yeah.
horrendous.
The way, I love the way the camera focused on Mon Mothma, kind of like digging her fingers into the siding of her Senate pod, and she
Hmm.
was just gripping, and I was just, and then the way she just rushed out of there feeling so, looking so disgusted and being like, what the hell did I
Yeah.
just say? And there was a shot in the trailer where we see somebody up at talking up on Emperor Palpatine's middle pod, but we didn't know who was going to
Hmm.
be there. And then we also see a shot of Mon Mothma kind of like in the Senate again. And I love,
Right. Right.
there's a lot of these, there's a lot of scenes in these 3 episodes that feel like a direct pickup from season 1.
Yeah,
Like I was mentioning to Parks about the elevator scene with Luthen and Lonnie. I was like,
right.
oh,
That's also in
we're about to
here.
see Peak again, but it was just a quick interaction.
Yeah.
Mon Mothma in the Senate again. There's just various different scenes like that. That was like, oh my god, it just feels like a direct pickup from season one, where,
Right.
or even on Luthen's ship and hearing that automated voice, I was like, oh my god, we're back on this thing. So yeah, there
Oh
was
yeah.
multiple scenes like that, but the yeah, I felt like there's been a great lead up to Palpatine. I don't know if we'll see Palpatine in Andor.
Man,
It
yeah,
would make sense to, but
it would.
I love that Bad Batch and Andor have been consistent with Palpatine kind of not being present in the Senate, but then I mean, I feel like Andor is leading up to an Emperor Palpatine appearance, which I would
Hmm.
love to see. Not for cameo sake, but it makes sense in the story if something really big happens at the end where he kind of makes his presence known or comes up in the Senate or something.
I
But
mean, if there's one scene, if they can only put Palpatine in one scene, and it needs to be like we're throwing a heater here, like it needs to be like memorable and worth having Palpatine there. It maybe needs to be the moment that we know about because of Star Wars Rebels, where Mon Mothma
yeah,
speaks out
I
about
was
the
about to
Gorman
say,
massacre.
yep.
If she is there and says that directly to Palpatine's face, absolute cinema. You know, like I'm getting hyped about that happening and potentially setting myself for disappointment. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be an epic moment. It has to be. But whether or not we see Palpatine is obviously where it would be like, oh, wouldn't that be cool? But I think
Yes.
either way, she's gonna get in trouble for saying this speech.
Yeah, I think I was thinking the exact moment too, of her claiming for the or her detesting against the Emperor and uniting more of a rebel front.
Mhm.
I think that would be the perfect opportunity. In Bad Batch, there was scenes where and Andor and Bad Batch did the same thing where they would focus on the mid or Palpatine's pod. Nothing was there. Nobody was there.
Right.
And then Bad Batch at the end of the episode had Palpatine because there was a scene where Bail Organa was like, "And where's Emperor Palpatine? What does he have to say about all this?" And then somebody was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, he's not available at the moment or something like that. He's too busy." And then at the end of the episode, you see him rising coming up, and everyone shuts up,
Oh,
and
what a
there's
moment.
like an alarm blare. It was like so chilling. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
waiting for that moment in because I love the way season one did it of Andor, where Mon Mothma was saying, and then the camera would pan over to or focus in on Palpatine's supposed seat. He was not there, and it's like, man, like
Yeah.
we're it just feels so different
That might
than
have been in the
the
Nobody's
Republic.
Listening episode too. It feels like it was
Mm,
around that time, and it would have worked for the title. You know,
yeah,
it's like,
no, definitely, yeah,
yeah.
that was great. So great return of the Senate scenes. This one, even though it was very short lived, it was chilling and gross to see, but it was really cool to see Mom Mothma again. And did you notice that when she walked out in the hallway, it looked very different than what we've seen in the prequels and
Oh, it
um
was like, yeah, it was like very like they added. I'm trying to think. It was a lot more like it looked like the ISB hallways, kind of like it was
yes,
very
yeah.
bright. Yeah. That's a
They
great
updated the
observation.
hallways.
I
They
didn't even
upgraded the
realize that.
hallways.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I just spent all of Clone Wars watching those hallway scenes where it'd be like
yeah.
Obi-Wan catching up with Satine or Padme walking with Ahsoka.
Hmm.
And now it's just like, and I mean, I think there were some shots like that in Revenge of the Sith where we got in the hallways and Attack of the
True.
Clones, where there's just like this neutral red and almost calming presence, but now it's just this blaring white and imperial white where I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, they redesigned the hallways outside. So just
Incredible. I mean, how
observation.
could they? Yeah.
How could they?
How could they? A couple other things in this episode before we move on to the next one in full. We catch up with the ISB a little bit. Of course, what
Mm,
leads to that scene you're mentioning where Lonnie meets with Luthen in the elevator again is he has kind of picked up on the fact that Dedra is secretly working on Gorman. Remember, in the last episode, Krennic was all like, yo, y'all are on this assignment, but you can't tell your supervisors. This is a complete secret. the only person that Dedra can talk to about the Gorman stuff is Partagaz, because he was also at that assembly, that conference that Krennic had. So Lonnie has kind of intuited this and tells Luthen. But we get some other updates, like Dedra's assistant from last season got a promotion. He's now an ISB supervisor, and he has the Axis assignment now. So that's unfortunate for Dedra. And there's a bit of competition there. It's like we were kind of working together, but now we're seeing a bit of a recreation of exactly what happened last season when Dedra was beefing with that one guy for like half the show. So yeah, no surprise, Imperials kind of stabbing each other in the back. It's what they do. It happened a lot in Rebels in small ways.
Yes.
Very much the same thing here. And then we also catch back up with Saul Guerrero's partisans, and they're on Dakar. How your reaction to that? Were you just like, what are we doing? You know?
Well, it's funny because last week I said that this show supposedly had a nod to Force Awakens, and I was like, what could that be? Well, it's Dakar. Well, yeah, that was great. First of all, I love that the partisans were once on Dakar. Dakar was obviously seen in Force Awakens, and then it was kind of set up in the book Lost Stars. I don't know if you ever read it, Parks, but we go to Dakar in the end of the book, and it's where the Rebel Alliance establishes a base towards Return of the Jedi. And because of all the humidity and whatever, the Empire couldn't really detect any Rebel presence there from just flying from the atmosphere. There's too much humidity where it messed with their scanners, and they couldn't detect any rebels. So there was like a small Rebel base there that was founded by one of the main characters of the book. So I was like, okay, that's cool. Maybe they got inspired by the partisans and all that being there. So I thought that was pretty interesting to go back to the car. I thought it was just great. I'm like, it makes sense that the resistance would eventually go back in some way and honor the origins of the Rebel Alliance. So I thought that was cool. If lightning doesn't strike the same place twice, so if it's like, oh shoot, they maybe the Empire discovered it along the way, but then like, oh yeah, they won't be back here. So so might as well the resistance could set up a base on Yavin 4. But it was, it was really cool. I love the partisans. I always love seeing Saul Guerrero. Again, what I said of extensions of season 1, the Imperial, the ISB scenes felt like, oh my God, it just felt like we just picked up straight from season 1. And being with the partisans again with Two Tubes and Saul, I was just like, oh, it felt like we're in the caverns again with Luthen visiting them and everything. But wow, we got a much more insane Saul this time around. Ooh. And you just see the impact,
literally huffing fuel, like
pretty intense. And God, every time Saul comes, I know people complain about him that it's such a repetitive character, but he is the character that makes the most sense in my opinion, not the one that I agreed with ideology with, but I'm just saying the way they've inserted him in different specs. I remember going from Clone Wars, and Saul Guerrero was just a Clone Wars character, and then he was referenced in Bloodline, where Leo had worked with Saul Guerrero, or there's a line in Bloodline that Saul Guerrero was one of the first establishing factors of the Rebel Alliance, and people were like, what? So he lived on from Clone Wars, and okay, that makes sense. And then when Rogue One was coming out, they're like, oh, he may not look familiar, but Forrest Whitaker is playing a familiar character that was first introduced in Clone Wars. And people were like, well, it's not Mace Windu. What other black guy could it be? And
who else could it? Yeah.
Who else could it be? So then they came across, well, it could be Saul, but doesn't look like Saul. But maybe this is a live action Saul.
Yeah.
And then we saw Saul in we learn about his legacy in the Battlefront 2 book, Inferno Squad, and then what the partisans become. So I just feel like we've been on this great evolution with Saul's story, and even being in Fallen Fallen Order, and then Bad Batch. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, I just love the story that we've been on
He
with
feels very
Saul.
at home in Andor, especially, I would
Yes,
say. Like, he's been in
yes,
all these things, but this feels like where he belongs the most. And I think,
absolutely.
the writing team very much owns Saul just by how they write him here. Like,
No, seriously,
yeah, no,
seriously.
he's an
I,
insane madman in these
he is a
episodes.
madman.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
was Rhydonium introduced? Was in Clone Wars, or did they pick that up from Legends and put that in Clone Wars? Because the amount of times Rhydonium
Hmm.
has been mentioned across Star Wars media is pretty funny to me. I'm just like, it was this
Hmm.
thing I grew up watching in the Clone Wars with that. It was introduced in the episode uh Point of No Return. No, not that
In
one.
season 5,
Season 5 with
it's when we
Gregor.
get, yeah, it's when we get Gregor. Yeah.
It's when we get Gregor. I forgot the name of the episode. The Lost Commando, the Lost, I don't know,
No,
some
I think Point of No Return is accurate. Or no, that's the one after.
that's the one
Who
after.
cares?
I don't know, who
We all know
cares.
the episode. Yeah.
But the one with Captain Gregor, and it was like these beautiful explosions of Rhydonium, and ever since then, I feel like I just feel like we've seen Rhydonium everywhere in Star Wars, in the video
Hmm.
games. So and getting it here, just hearing it, I'm just like, wow, that just feels like a great
Missing in
callback.
action. And yes,
Missing in action,
that
yes.
was its very first appearance in Star Wars.
Wow,
So Clone Wars came up with Rhydonium. So yeah.
that is crazy to me.
Hmm.
The influence. But the madman of Saw Gerrera, I felt well, first of all, let's talk about what's his name?
Who?
Uh
Who?
curly hair. The guy that's with
Willman?
Willman. And
Yep.
it
Yep.
looks like he was named after one of the writers or directors of the show.
Oh, Bo
Uh
Willman. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Willman. And then the way Saul was like, Willman. It was
Mon. Yeah,
Mon.
that was even funnier with the subtitle where it's like,
Yeah,
do you have to put a
he
period after Will and
separated.
a period after Mon? Yeah, it
Right.
was.
No, I'm glad you
Yeah,
caught that
yeah.
too. I was laughing. I
I
was
had
like,
the
"Oh my
same
god."
thought. Yeah.
He separated his name. But yeah,
Will
poor guy
Mon.
was sent out by Luthen, and I just got anxiety for him because he was like, "I'm
Hmm.
gonna do my job and go." He's like, "Oh no, no, much work
You're
there's to
here
be
till
done."
I'm done with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was a little scared for him.
Yeah.
And when I'm jumping the gun here, but when Saul pulled out the blaster in front of his face, I was like, my heart dropped. I'm like, no, please, not
I was
Wilmon.
ready for him to get shot then and there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he just goes and shoots the other guy. I was like, my mouth, not even joking, was dropped open until like Wilmon was like, oh, when Saul walked away and he took like a deep breath,
Hmm. Hmm.
that or exhaled, that's when I closed my mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just like, whoa. I just the range of emotions that I just experienced were intense. And
Hmm.
I totally expecting Wilmon to bite the dust there.
Yeah.
And it just turn of events there, that it's something that I didn't even expect. But
Hmm.
it, in the trailers we've seen a guy laying there in the partisan X-Wings kind of
That was
fly.
the shot. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a shot, and I'm like, wait, what guy did they just kill? And they're just flying away like that, and it was apparently an Imperial spy. So
Yeah.
there's that. What did you think of all that?
I mean, yeah, no. Thinking about just kind of where we go with these episodes with like the Gorman front and these different kind of iterations of rebellion and resistances and stuff. Saw is someone that is going to have like increasing importance as we go towards Rogue One. So I think even though he's like the most disconnected from what these episodes are about, we do kind of need to touch base with him a little bit. Like, I'm sure it's fun to see where Will is going, and that's going to be like our personal tether to Saul, like as we go forward. But I think what we're seeing here is just Saul running his partisans, like akin to like a cult of personality, where it's like we see how they do things. Like there is a certain vibe to like when he's like, let's, those Imperials think we're going over here, but we're gonna be parsecs away. Pack up everything, we're going out of here. And it's like, woo! And it's like he's leading a band of pirates here, basically. Like this is barely a rebel cell. Like it is, these guys are full on, committing daily acts of terrorism in the Star Wars galaxy, I'm sure. But it's just so different. And I wonder if where we're going with this is kind of establishing the sort of splinter between Saul and the rest of like the rebellion that's taking place. While the rebellion's in a position where it needs to come together more than ever, especially with Gorman going on. Saul is off doing his own thing. He couldn't be bothered. I think that sort of it's a very different kind of monologue slash speech than what we're used to with the show, but the one he kind of gives to Willman at the end of episode 5, that's one that I really want to rewatch and kind of unpack in bit, and because it starts out with him talking about the jungles of Onderon, going into like almost novel like detail about like it was, you know, sweaty and so hot, not good for most people, and then you wake up, it's burning your insides when you smell this stuff. Like, it's so
Right.
insane.
It's like I was reading a book.
And then he's telling, you know, like he's telling Willman to like smell this stuff in. It's like, dude, you're here, you're giving it all. Like, who cares? You know, like
It's ready to fight.
he writes something down that I had to or I wrote something down that he says that I had to write down, which is revolution is not for the sane. We're the thing that explodes when there's too much friction in the air. And what you really see is like, yes, these guys are crazy, but also they are very much the type of revolutionary and the type of like rebels who literally are just like, you know, they will never surrender. They will never admit defeat. They live to destroy shit. And that is scary in a way when you look at like how Luthen does things and Cassian does things. Like, we are trying to be very calculated and careful. And you just think about the gracefulness of like what Clea has to do in Coruscant and how she has to run that operation versus what Saul is doing. It's so drastically different. It's like, there's no way when the call for rebellion comes that these people are going to get along. I almost wonder if we're going to get a scene next arc towards the end where Mon Mothma has left the Senate, the rebellion is coming together, but we get a scene where Saul is basically, the phone is ringing, he goes, nope, sorry, not interested, you know.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, the quote that you brought up about revolution is not for the sane, I love seeing the mirror of that with Bix and Luthen, where Bix was like, I don't think I'm as strong as you. I don't think, and all because of what she's dealt with and kind of her revolution on Ferrix and kind of the repercussions of that, and how Luthen, and she even says, or maybe I don't, or maybe you're not as strong as I think. I'm just like, wow, like we're just really getting all the perspectives here of what it takes to overthrow an empire, or the beginning of it.
Yeah. So much uncertainty. Like, no one really knows what's the right approach.
No, you get all these different variations and all these moving pieces where in this storyline and in this middle, or in not the middle, because we're halfway through, but in this arc, you just felt all the moving pieces. And I thought a great analogy of that was, not a direct one because they were talking about something else, but I felt like it was the implied theme of all this kind of moving pieces when what's her not I want to say Layla, that's not her name. Clea when her and Luthen are going back and forth about all the communication pieces they have around the galaxy apparently, and he's like, all these lines everywhere, all we have, you know, it's like we're being flooded.
We're drowning in it. We're drowning in it. Yeah.
And that's what I felt like we were in the middle of these episodes, where I was like, oh my god, we're drowning in all these perspectives. You're getting the Gorman front, you're getting Bix and Cinta, you're getting Luthen, Cassian, Bix, Saul, Willman. Like, it was very spread out. And even Lonnie in his own way. So I'm just like, wow, everyone fighting in a very different degree. So yeah, I'm just like, wow, and this is the show to do it, and you couldn't get away with something like this in any other show. And now I kind of see why. I still don't agree with it, but Disney releasing these things as like a movie of the week, because oh my god, it's just, you need to take it in all at once almost, because it's just made it to be watched almost in a film way, not what Tony Gilroy intended, but I'm sure if it's like, hey, you got you know, these storylines for this season, we're gonna do them. When we show them in movies, I could totally see if he was given the option to, he would have made, because this is what he made 4 mini movies. I mean, the way Stranger Things is, it is now with like, sometimes they have 90-minute episodes. With Stranger Things, especially the last season, it's like, oh my god, they're all each a movie. So that's kind of what we have here
Truly, yeah.
this season. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, kind of moving here. I mean, we've kind of talked about some storylines in full here and there. Just one last thing from episode 4 I want to touch on. We'll, like I said, we've talked about some things, so we'll move through 5 and 6 quicker. I don't want to take forever doing this, even though it's fun. The final shot we get in episode 4 is of Cassian leaving, and Bix is left behind in the apartment, and you feel a sense of like, oh God, like this is what she, like, this is not good for her to be alone here with nothing to do. And we see her drop some Star Wars acid, effectively, which we hear in the next episode kind of helps with her nightmares. But when she stops taking it, they're going to come back even worse. So yeah, we leave off with Bix there in a bad place. So next episode then is when we get, of course, what was it? Variant Sky. Loved, like you said, the spy sort of breakdown. Your Variant Sky. Here's your whole backstory. Love the little kind of robotics spy voice there. Very James Bond. This whole episode. Being a fashion designer, just a great excuse to make Diego Luna wear yet another awesome fit. Like just that entire thing, plus the sunglasses, the outrageous sunglasses.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like, I think, yeah, no, if I went to like a unfortunately Celebration's 2 years out, but if it was next year, I'd be like, all right, guys, we're gonna dress up as the Gorman people. Like, give me the sunglasses.
Oh my God, give me the sunglasses.
Yeah. So yeah, no, he was serving up some looks here. We talked about the one quick thing. It's very interesting how we start this episode with Cassian, where he stops at a diner, like a diner looking place, meets with this woman, and then this dude comes out of a door, this weird looking dude. What was that? What was that about?
Wasn't it for him to get the communicator to?
It was just like
It was out of nowhere. I felt like
it was an alien jump scare.
It was a hidden jump scare because I was
Yeah.
expecting him to get something like that from Luthen, and we just, I don't even, maybe Tony Gilroy was like, I have family that want to be in Star Wars, let me make this scene.
They're gonna look weird. They're gonna look like a big, tall,
weird.
Solomon Grundy looking guy. Yeah.
You had this this lady there, completely human, and you expect like another human to walk out from and it was like this big. I was like, okay, that's what we're doing, cool.
There are many different kinds of rebels out there, many shapes and sizes.
Absolutely. And then the next shot was Cassian walking into the Coruscant and the device telling him like, your name is
I always remember Sky.
Sky.
Variant Sky.
Variant Sky.
I can't remember
Variant Sky. Yeah. You are a fashion designer. You
You've never been to Gorman,
You've never been to Gorman.
Training your whole life though.
Yeah. You moved to Coruscant when you're 12 years old or something like that. It just gave me a whole story. I'm like, oh, cool. That's deep. But I mean, I guess it was pretty cool. We got that little jump scare, I guess. But I was just a little.
I just had to call attention to that because there were a lot of moments in these episodes where it's like, wow, we're letting aliens talk a lot. Like, this is growth for Tony Gilroy. Usually he's not.
I literally had the same thought. I'm like, oh my God, like this. There's even another scene where it was the scene where Clea was talking to some alien spectator in the shop, and then she's like, oh, sorry, I'm gonna have to take this, I'll be right back, excuse me. And then the alien even replied in some language, and I was like, oh my God, Tony Gilroy really stepped it up with the aliens this time around.
Yeah. We get some clashes, as we've talked about, between Cassian and the Gorman front here. Enza, the woman he meets in like the cafe, is totally not good with the spy protocol at all. Cassian's kind of schooling the whole lot of them. They want to steal this transport truck that is transporting weapons to the armory that they are building here. We know, the audience, that they're using this facility to, it's not really an armory. They're using it to help extract the resources to build the Death Star, but no one knows that yet. And we're probably not going to know that until we get to the last arc when Cassian gets the intel about the rings of Kafrene. But I think their final interaction here really stings at the very end of this, where Cassian's done. He's all done. He's like, look, you're not going to be able to steal you can steal this, but you're not going to be able to get away. It's just, you literally live right here. You know, your life is in big danger if you try and do this. Like, they're going to know it's you. And they don't like that answer at all. And he says to Cassian, not much of a revolutionary, are you? And I don't remember what Cassian says, something like, I guess not, and then walks away. Again, I think a big theme in these episodes is like, you know, not just the many different forms like these different rebel cells and movements are taking, but just the fact that we're reaching these moments where they need to get along and they're not. They're having very key disagreements about vital things, and they're going to suffer for that. So that was interesting for sure. I think as well, let's see. We kind of touch base a bit with Cyril here as he's spying. He's playing up the performance. I think a thought that came to my mind a bit during this episode is like, man, Kyle Solar, he plays Cyril Karn. Man, I've really been underrating him as an actor. He's just so
Yeah.
fun to watch. Just the funniest actor in a lot of these episodes.
Yes. He
He's
plays the
great.
awkwardness part so well. And did you know that last week's and one of last week's episode, whatever scene the episode was in, but when he lays on the bed,
Yes.
it wasn't in the script,
Oh,
and the
wow.
director
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, okay, so you're Cyril. What do you want to do in the scene? You know, your mother out there is getting um a bit out there with her conversation about you, and Dedra's kind of shutting her down. What do you want to do? What do you think that?" And he said, "Oh, I think I'm just gonna lay here." And that's what he did, and that's what he pulled. And it was one of the best
It's
scenes
so
from
good.
last week's. So he, as
Yeah.
you said,
Yeah.
Kyle plays him really, really well.
Yeah. With that, we get a great scene where he's reporting back to the ISB on Coruscant. And he's like, uh, if I say this is the best day of my life, will it spoil everything? And we have this moment that made me laugh out loud where Dedra goes, and she just cannot get the frown off her face. She's like, it's good to see you happy. Like, she is such a piece of shit. Like, I'm just gonna
Yes,
say it. She
fair
sucks
enough.
so much. There's another scene in there where he's on Coruscant with her in the apartment. This was like a clip that kind of was like revealed for the show early on, like a few weeks ago. But Dedra tells Cyril that he was followed. He just had she had no choice. It was an ISB thing, or at least that's what she tells him. Barely kisses him when he walks in the door. In fact, it's more of like a, come on, you know what to do. And it's just like, dude, God, she is such a psychopath. Like, she sucks so much.
The way they were both like, they just couldn't get over the fact, like, okay, so she had him followed, and then at the end, he was like, you had me followed, and she's like, turn off the lights.
Turn off the lights.
Oh god.
Yeah,
And then I
no.
love that the next scene after that is uh all in the subtitles. It said like steaming sound or steamy noise or something like that, or
Mhm.
steaming kettles or something, and we were back in Gorman with something steaming, and I was like, I think it's
God
very
damn
much
it.
the opposite of. I know. I'm like,
Yeah,
who?
yeah.
I'm like, who's the editor of this show?
God,
Who put
she's
us in this? Ugh,
yeah. No, I mean, God, they must be having so much fun playing those characters. Like,
yes.
they're both a nightmare in different ways. I mean, I think I feel more sympathy for Cyril, unfortunately. Just like, I have no sympathy for Dedra. Obviously the character's really well written, but like, man, they just make a spectacle of just her being awful, just absolutely awful.
Awful. Right.
And the fact that poor Silo Karn, just so desperate to be loved and for attention, is just like willing to do this. And it's like, bro, like, you need a nice lady in the rebellion who's going to radicalize you and go, hey, you know, the Empire were never the good guys. You might think that in your head, but like, they're not. So stop, you know. And there's a line in the next episode that I thought was fascinating, which was, I think it was in Partagas was talking to Dedra, maybe, where he says, he cannot know what we're up to. And if
Yes.
he finds out, like, he might not go along with it anymore. So I think that's an interesting bit of foreshadowing, personally. Like, I think next week he's going to realize a little too late because I think the thing with Cyril Karn is, yeah, he sucks, but like helps the Empire because only because of what he thinks is doing is just. But the Empire is never truly just. They create these laws and these rules of how things work in the galaxy, and tell people to follow the rules. And in his mind, because they're the rules, following them is the correct thing to do. But like the rules are designed to screw people over when it's the Empire. So I think that's where he's going. Is like, yeah. And I don't know how far he goes after that. I don't know how far many of these characters go, but yeah.
Yeah.
But let's see. To touch base here with I guess the other storyline we get introduced to in this episode is with Clea. She is spying on Davos Golden. He found a forgery in his collection, his art collection, which he's throwing a party the following day on Coruscant. So not only did we get a wedding last week, we're going to get a party. And because of that, he's going to check all of his collection. And that concerns Clea and Luthen because they're going to find their secret microphone, which apparently they've just been planting everywhere. I completely skipped over it, but this episode had such a cool intro where you had the Andor logo, of course, but then you had all the radio signals. You had Ryloth. You had what was another planet? There was definitely another planet. Corellia. Yeah. Lots of little bits in conversations. Yeah, no, they're getting a little crazy with the spy network is starting to, like you said, drown. They're starting to drown in all the stuff they got. So,
yeah, no, that was a perfect piece. Reminded me of at the end of the Rebels episode where Kanan gets captured by the Inquisitor. They have the whole kind of subplot in season 1 about Ezra's parents and what they did, that they were, radio rebels and they would broadcast against the Empire. And at the end of because the whole episode they were like, why don't we broadcast against the Empire? So then they did that, but then at the end of the episode, Hera was like, so I think Sabine was like, we're not gonna let them win, are they? And then Hera was like, no, we won't, or something. And then you hear the radio signal go and then cut out. So it's just like, that was such a cool play. And then it was like the title card, or the show logo, ending the roll to end credits, whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, that was such a cool creative way to play it instead of just even with Clone Wars when Ahsoka left the Jedi Order and they played a different beat, it was like, oh my god, this was much more impactful. So this starting the episode like this, they started playing the slow violins of the Andor theme, and then it immediately cut out, and then it was showing all these bits of dialogue and radio signals, and then the violin started back up again when the signal went away. And I was like, dude, that is so something definitely done like in the editing bay and something thought about after. But I'm just like, dude, that is so cool that it just shows you how much care goes into the show. That's like, yes, we finished a finished project, but like we're even gonna like start your teasing with your experience at the beginning, at the start of the show. So that was a really nice job.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's episode 5. I mean, we end off that episode with the whole interaction between Will and Saul there, the guy being or an Imperial spy, and then we're the thing that exploded and there's too much friction in the air. The final shot is of Will. I feel like he was doing kind of like a Shawshank Redemption, like in the rain. I don't remember. That's what something like that.
Yes, he was yelling, and after he was struggling to breathe. Then he just took it all in. Yeah, that definitely is reminiscent of Shawshank. Definitely.
Yeah. So in episode 6 now, and we're on the 3rd episode of this arc, so we're expecting things to go off, and they do. But I want to kind of point out, like, up to this point, we've had no action, basically. And in this episode, we barely get action. A single blaster is fired, and well, not true. 2 blasters are fired. One from the heist and then the other one with Bix shooting the guy as she exiting Dr. Gorst's little department or whatever. That one's yay. So
yeah, that was the yay.
Yeah. But we start off with Cassian meeting Luthen at Port Steerguard, which, going back to last season, Port Steerguard, you're talking about like connections and whatnot. This is where he got that like Imperial computer device or whatever that he was first
Yes.
trying to trade to Luthen. So this show implies so many things without telling you. That's like, oh, that's interesting to think about. I guess that's where they do this. Like, to me, this is where they do the kind of this is like the safe port to like kind of do like, if Cassian's gonna meet up with Luthen after a mission, we're gonna come here, or we're gonna meet up with somewhere in the system and then go to a real destination, that sort of thing. So I like the idea that that's where, you know, Cassian is meeting Luthen here. There's a great dialogue exchange here that I loved that is basically going, okay, Luthen, what's your end game here with Gorman? You know, and once again, you know, just like we know with Luthen, like we get that great pendulum swing of, or we can really appreciate Luthen and then we can really hate Luthen. You know, we can appreciate him for checking in on Bix and making sure she's good. And then we can kind of go, man, your way of thinking about this is like borderline twisted, where Cassian, his priorities are very much, and it ties back to Bix, where it's like, yo, we're fighting for people. You know, we're not just fighting to destroy the Empire. We're fighting to save people. That was Cassian's whole thing at the end of last season, is I'm saving Bix, I'm saving my community. That matters so much. But you know, Luthen is looking at this as a chess game and looking at this in the grand strategy of it all. And Cassian is basically like, you know, what's more worth it to you, having these people actually join the cause or losing them in some kind of slaughter? And he says, uh, uh Cassian goes, what if it goes up in flames? And Luthen goes, it will burn very brightly, implying that like, if this whole thing on Gorman doesn't work out, it will be a symbol for the rest of the galaxy to
Yeah.
unite. But the problem is it is a fire. It is people being slaughtered. And it is like kind of messed up, you know, to have these moments where you're like, man, Luthen is right, but I hate his logic. Like, I hate how he's doing that, where it's like, it can't be worth like, is like the rebellion stronger for an incident like what might happen on Gorman happening, you know? Or could it have benefited from playing the long game that Cassian wants these people to play? You know, do things safely. Don't be too hasty about your heists and stealing trucks and stuff. And then we can have you join the cause. Because another thing Cassian says in the conversation I think is really is fascinating is how he's like, these people don't know how to fight. If the Empire comes down on them, they're screwed.
Yeah.
So that is just a great interaction between them. And I think in general in this episode, we began to see a very big wedge start to form between Cassian and Luthen. And I think in a way, like, I don't know where you stood with this. Luthen and Clea are so concerned with this sort of mission they're on by the end of the episode with trying to get the listening device out of Skolden's like art gallery. The mission that like Bix and Cassian are on, I'm not even sure that's an actual mission that Luthen has them doing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just because we never had a scene or any kind of communique about it, I feel like Bix was kind of doing that on her own initiative, and Cassian was supporting him or her. Sorry,
Yes.
especially since she did it in such a loud way.
Yes. Because
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I don't think if Luthen had assigned them, I don't even think they would done the explosion there. Because wasn't that on Coruscant?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's big. That's big. I don't know. I don't. If it was a Luthen mission, it would have gone a little bit more quietly, I think.
Mhm.
And they
It's
even left him there, so that guy knows of Bix's existence, or I don't know if they might play that up in the next arc. But he's like, oh, you look familiar. I know you from somewhere. Maybe
Mhm.
he'll remember. But usually, when it comes to a Luthen mission, it's about silencing people. So
Yeah, and kind of like bearing you're covering your tracks and that sort of thing. And like,
right,
you know, there's so many things she does here that it's like, if there was a security camera nearby, I mean, she's she's screwed. Like she has
Right.
to, but I think for her, it kind of goes back to what she said, like in one of the previous episodes, like where she's already putting everything on the line. It's like, what's the difference? She's been a refugee. She lived on that planet in the last episode. She's here in Coruscant. She's just bound to end up somewhere else and have to avoid, the Empire no matter where she goes. So,
Right.
but that was great payoff for her. I mean, this woman has
Absolutely.
been through so much. It's like, it's just, I was really worried we were going down a track of somewhere in the middle of this where it's like, man, like, is Cassian going to have to take her to rehab? Are we doing one of those stories where it's like
Right.
now she's addicted to drugs? It's like, I'm so glad it didn't go in that direction, because it's like, man, like,
She suffered enough.
exactly. Yeah. And we just, they kind of strung us along just enough to give us this great kind of payoff here.
Yes,
So,
they did. Yeah. It was like when she beat up that Imperial last week,
yeah.
and she hit him in the head. And I was like, thank God. And then you got that lens, like, oh, where he hit his head,
Mhm.
which you brought up. He hit his head on the container and finally put him out. But that, which was great, obviously great to see. And then this time around, it was like, yeah, like she finally kept seeing Dr. Gorse and all these like little, or her dealing with the fallout from that, and then having that like vindication moment. I was like,
Yeah.
hell
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it, like you said, we were strong along enough where we were like building up that anxiety too, and the anger. And it was like, it was finally, it was a big W. And that was great to
A
see.
big W. Yeah. And just shout out to Cassian, supportive boyfriend, just like,
Absolutely.
you want to get revenge on the guy who tortured you and traumatized you. I got you, babe. Like, we're gonna go make his life a living hell. Like, what a king.
Yeah. Do you
So
think they blew him up,
I think
or
so. I think I think Gorst is dead.
okay?
Yeah. Like, we're gonna make him suffer, and then we're gonna blow him up. So
Yeah,
I
the
support it.
way it was a death. I almost wanted to hear him scream for a bit, which is very cynical of me. But we got to hear Bix scream in a very,
Yeah.
like, where it was gut wrenching to hear. Where I was like, oh my god, this is a Star Wars show. And then I almost want to hear him scream in agony.
I think in
But
a
I was
way the scream evokes sympathy, like as a
true.
viewer. The not hearing it but
I like
just seeing
this.
it evokes horror. Like the way this guy was like shaking, I was like,
Yeah,
holy shit,
yeah.
it
You
was
know what?
like
You're right.
insane.
You're
Yeah.
right. You're right. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That was very dark for me. But after what he did to Bix, I'm like, hell,
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. No, I
jail.
mean, just imagine how many things this guy's done to other people too.
No, so
Like,
and they were talking about that he was going to be enrolled in a program or something to make this a
not
bit
anymore.
more. Yeah,
Yeah.
not anymore. End of
Oops.
a career. Oops.
Oops. Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the Luthen
Yes.
and a bit more of them on Coruscant
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
party?
I'm a little
Okay.
over the place.
No,
My
you're
first
good.
time
You're
doing
good.
this, but
You're good.
uh,
There's a
where
lot to
we
talk about.
there is so much. I mean, there's even more than last week. Last week I feel like just to kind of, yeah, because two things kind of, we intercut between sort of two things towards the end of this episode. The kind of mission to steal everything off this transport truck on Gorman, and then this secret mission at Davos Golden's party on Coruscant, where Clea is trying to get a listening device that they previously planted before it gets found in the gallery. With Gorman, to kind of establish all that first, Vel is brought back in, and I mean, this show has so many characters. It's like, Vel, I forgot. Like, we haven't seen her in a couple episodes, but she's here. She reunites with Cinta. We get some great heart to heart. I think of all the examples here of things that characters that where they were really good about like handling the year gap between episodes. I think
Mhm.
this is one of my favorite instances of it. You get the sense that these characters have not seen each other in a year. That's really aided by like small stuff, like Cinta has a haircut. Bill's like, hey,
Yes.
I like what you did with the hair, that sort of thing. Cinta had an accident, and she's in trouble for it. We don't know what it is, but neither does Vel. And in a way, well, I mean, we're never going to know because Cinta dies. And I think the kind of breakdown of that, and just like the tragedy of, these characters are finally gonna come on the same page about stuff. Like there's a great line here that I think really encapsulates what their relationship has been through this show, which is we're worth more separately than we are together. Again, just like while we're dealing with how Cassian and Bix handle their relationship, here's another relationship that is, like equally tough. And maybe after this whole thing happens, like this whole thing on Gorman is wrapped up, there could be a reconvening for those characters, but classic Andor fashion, it's not going to happen.
No.
We get this heist sort of. You get the sense that anything can go wrong at any moment, not just because these guys are inexperienced, but because Cyril is like a spying on them. So
Yeah.
it's like, are they going to get ambushed? Like you're just waiting for something to happen. But then I think the most like unsuspecting thing happens where one of the other Gorman fronts is beefing with these guys and is like, yo, like you can't be doing this. Vel and Senta very discreetly told everyone, no blasters, just us, and this guy has a blaster and they're fighting over it and it shoots Senta. Insane. Like, oh man, that moment, Mike. Like, how did you react?
What is with the show and not showing us immediately when they get shot?
I
Like
know.
Brasso last
Yeah.
week, this week Senta, I was confused. I'm like, wait, what the hit? And then when I see a girl on the ground, I'm like, oh no. I knew that after that kiss that they had, which was great to see, I was like, wow, like they really went there. I'm
They
like,
did. Yeah.
every time I watch Andor, I always feel radicalized or I feel like they change, they do something big, they make a statement,
Yes.
and they did it. I mean, last week they had many things to say, and I mean, yeah, they just did the controversy amount around
Sure.
some stuff. And then this week I'm like, oh yeah, they just Tony Gilroy is just throwing gas to the fire, right? Which I think is great. But
Let it
after
burn very
that,
brightly.
literally, but after that kiss, I'm like, yep, one of them is going down, and I think it's into. So
Yeah.
when that happened, I was like, yep, I
I
knew
was
it.
fully expecting both of them to die. That was the thought in the back of my head. I was like, Vel and Senta are both going to die. Like just the way they're talking here, it's like
Right.
there's
The
just
way.
too much emotional catharsis going on. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, no, they're so
And
screwed.
the way they left it open about, or Val was more focused on, why didn't Luthen tell me? Like Luthen should have told me. Luthen should have. So I wonder what they're. Well, it's not like we're gonna. Let's see what happens next week. A moment after this all happened, we jump a year, so we might see
Yeah.
their relationship a bit different. And maybe even this is crazy. Like they're jumping like we spent 3
It's
episodes,
so
but oh yeah,
insane.
we're gonna, and you can fill in so many time with this with an animated show if you wanted to. If you
Yeah.
Not that I want them to, but you totally could. Like we're gonna fill in the gaps. Like this animated show called Andor or Cassian is gonna fill in the blanks of. So I think that it's
Yeah.
pretty crazy that you can do that. Again, I completely understand why Tony and company were like, let's condense this down from 5 seasons to less. But man, I think 3 is always the perfect number. I'm like,
Three is a great
man,
number. Yeah.
oh,
Like this, I think last week worked for the 3 episodes. Not that this one didn't. Like it is so impressive how they're pulling this off.
absolutely.
But like, yeah, like I found myself going, man, I could really go for a whole beat for beat season of just Gorman, like how that's all evolving. Like, what's the direct aftermath of this? Obviously, we're going to see the far reaching aftermath of what's going on Gorman, which is Imperial occupation. Like, by the end of this, the Empire has, the ISB has the justification it was looking for. What, Dedra told Krennic in the last arc, which was, you need bad rebels you can rely on to do the wrong thing. That happened.
Yes.
That moment
Mhm.
happened, and it's going to justify imperial occupation, which we're going to see next week get even worse. A year on, but I would love to see the direct aftermath of that, and then just kind of the slow descent towards that. But yeah, no, I get it, you know, and I have to admire the how creative they are being about the time jumps. It's like that's the solution here is like if you can't make it like seamless, be creative, I guess, you know, and they're doing that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And I think one more thing to shout out here is like Vel has a great moment where she is scolding, I think Mashiko is his name,
Yes.
about about Cinta's death. Like, this is on you. This is skin. Like, it'll never come off. Um, she is the warrior you daydream of becoming. And this guy is like, this actor playing Mashiko is like having a full-on breakdown. And it's like, dude, like, yeah, someone actually died. Someone very important died. Like, we lost a soldier in the revolution, basically.
And someone that was trying to help y'all
Yeah,
because they
yeah,
were so amateurish that these people were their guide. Imagine one of the rebels on Andor killed Obi-Wan or Anakin or Ahsoka.
literally,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
what did we do, y'all?
Yeah, she says she was a blooded, fearless warrior, not some whining, simpering, foolish child. You'll make up for this forever. So I mean,
Ugh.
one of those things of like the time jumps. I wonder if we're gonna see that character again next arc, and how different is he gonna be, if at all, you know?
Yeah. No,
Just in
I
general, the whole Gorman front, like, are they still just as soft? Have they gotten a little more on like harder edge about their rebellion, or has it just, you know, gone completely sour for them?
right. Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah.
It almost feels like we're getting to look at them like if each arc could be a season, and you
Hmm.
spent like 12 episodes in that, which you could, and
Easily,
seeing
yeah.
like we're just like really we're fast instead of the 5 seasons we're supposed to get. They're like, you know what, we got a season, and then we're gonna condense 4 seasons into 4 different stories.
Right,
So get
right, yeah.
ready. So
Buckle in.
into 4 arcs. So that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a thing about the Gorman massacre, which I looked up a while ago, but I'm just pulling it up now. So I'm gonna read a quick Reddit post that somebody posted about the. This was 2 months ago. So this person on Reddit said, "I'm kind of disappointed that the Gorman massacre was changed from Tarkin's ship landing on protesters." Which we learned that this
Mm,
is it's what happened. So
that's good. We
this
haven't talked about
this
that yet. Yeah.
so this is an old Reddit post that was posted 2 months ago. Yeah, I'm kind of bummed they changed the Gorman massacre. In the original version, Tarkin straight up landed his ship on a crowd of protesters, just crushed him under it, which was so cold and brutal. It really showed how ruthless he was. It wasn't just violence, it was this calculated, heartless display of power. Like he didn't even think they were worth the effort of firing a blaster. It made him feel even scarier because it wasn't just about killing people, it was about sending a message in the most impersonal, terrifying way possible.
Yes. Yeah.
Changing it to just Imperial shooting the protesters feels way less impactful. Don't get me wrong, it's still awful, but it's also kind of generic. You've seen that kind of scene a bunch in stories and about authoritarian regimes. The ship landing on people was so unique and really cemented Tarkin as this cold, calculating villain who just didn't follow orders. He found the most ruthless way to carry them out. The new version just makes it feel like another typical act of Imperial cruelty instead of something that really sets Tarkin apart.
Mm,
Well, we learn in the episodes that
why
that's
not both?
yeah, they were like, why not both? We'll do both.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
do, which I thought was played really well, and I'm like, I'm glad that they carried that over from
Right.
Legends. So I'm like, that's cool. They
Yeah, no. I mean, the landing on protesters thing is pretty gnarly. Like, that is awful. And I mean, they describe that word for word in the episode. And I think that is like a great kind of explanation for why there is like the Gorman front has been a thing even before in like all these years. You know, Saul mentions them last season, the Gorman front. Is because, you know, they have a long-standing beef with the empire, you know. Um, so yeah, no, I think another thing with the declassified video thing mentioned earlier that, you know, we're going to have confirmed maybe one or the other next week. But I think Tony Gilroy says, like, we have the Tarkin massacre where a few hundred people died, but it's not like the Gorman massacre that you're going to see. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? Like, how many people are going to
oh
die? You know, and it's like,
oh
it
Lord.
can't just be people shooting at a crowd of protesters then. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe we're not even ready Like, I know one thing that was mentioned last arc when Krennic is briefing everyone on the assignment for Gorman is like extracting the Kalkai or whatever could cause environmental collapse. That's part of what I'm picturing is like, are we going to get a little bit of environmental collapse? Is a sinkhole going to open up in the city and people are going to fall through? I don't know. Like, you know, a lot of things could happen.
True. Yeah, they could
Yeah.
level the whole city. Interesting.
Yeah. But to bring this thing home, we have one more kind of sequence to talk about. While the heist or the truck operation is happening, we are at a party with hosted by Davos Golden, who we also another character we just can't escape. Yeah. We meet up with a bunch of characters here. Luthen's here, Clay is here, Lonnie is here from the ISB. Mon Mothma's here with her husband, who we also can't escape, and Krennic is here. And we get some great dialogue between her and Mon Mothma. That's just like, how nice of you to be free of the witness stand. And he's like, oh, this is a great party. You know, everyone here is so good. They have a great exchange, just such a like snobby exchange about, oh, so your rebel is my terrorist. Is that how it is? You know, something like that. While at the same time, the other side of the room, Clea, you know, who's usually very good at playing things cool, and very good at spycraft. This is just the closest she's ever gotten to like completely screwing it all up. Where she's trying to get this listening device out and blood is coming off her hand. Did you think she was going to get it out and successfully?
No, they had me fooled for a moment. And they earn these fake outs, what people call them. They told the show totally earns them, where they will hold me in suspense every time, where I believe it. You know, if it was another type of show, I'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, okay, I've seen this. This is cliche. But they use the fake out so well because they actually make me believe that it's not a fake out.
Yeah.
So when it turns out to be like, oh, she got it in time, I'm like, oh my god, that was close. It was just the way she was telling Lonnie, move to the left. But why? Move to the left now, or you're gonna face consequences.
And the tension of like, yo, Lonnie is an ISB supervisor. If she gets caught, he's complicit. He loses everything. You know, he has a family. We know this from last season that he's really worried about. Like, he already has his reservations about helping Luthen, though he tries. Like, this is an awful scenario for them. But it worked. Honestly, like, part of me wants to see what would have happened if it didn't. But I think the answer is obvious. Like, Luthen's operation would have been completely shot down. But
yeah,
I don't know.
There's still a shot in one of the trailers where Dedra shows up at the storefront. So I wonder what happens. I wonder what
keep
happens.
talking about that scene. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I don't know. Luthen, we have 6 episodes and time is ticking for characters like Luthen. Like, what happens to this character? What happens to Clea? What happens to Vel? You know, what happens to Cyril? Or, you know, what happens to Dedra? You know, like, do all these characters live past Rogue One? You know, they might, but like, I don't know.
They might. And you might get a Tales of Rogue One and Beyond animated show, and it's gonna premiere on Fortnite. You never know what's gonna happen in Star Wars.
It's gonna premiere on Fortnite. And on that note, yeah, we that concludes, I think, another week of Andor here. That's everything that happened. It was a lot.
It was a lot. But I'm glad, like, I'd rather talk about these things than not. Like, I'd rather sit here and dive into all the details and spectacle than, like, you know, like, it's great talking with friends and whatever, because I have plenty of Star Wars friends, but it's always good to involve you guys and involve the community. And I love reading what you guys have to say. So let us know what you guys thought about the episodes. For me, when Krennic showed up, I was not expecting it. And when he did, my mouth dropped and I'm like, oh my God. And getting the cold exchanges between the two, I was like, oh my God, my mind jumped to Rogue One, where Mon Mothma's forces are battling his forces on Scarif, and I'm like, these two will become already opposing sides. But I'm like, they will. It's going to be a much more concrete
And I love
becoming
how
years.
just like aggressively she's talking to him. Like it's
Absolutely.
just like they both hate each other, but they both know they're in a social setting where it's like we can't do anything right now, so we're just gonna throw daggers at each other. Like
Yeah,
I hate
literally.
like.
It felt like two family members at odds that
And he just
at a party.
he had so much sassy dialogue too. Like I want to remember so much of what he said, but it's just so much like
But it
sassiness of
was
like,
so good. Ben
yeah,
Mendelsohn always delivers. And
yeah,
the
man.
way when they got to the artifact there, and he's like, "So I heard this is your favorite piece," and she's like, "Yeah, it is. Why?" And I was, and then Lonnie came in. I'm like, "Shout out Lonnie, man! Shout out Lonnie.
Yeah, he saved
Lonnie's
that.
Lonnie's
Yeah.
always an MVP here." But yeah, these were a bunch of freaking three impactful episodes packed with a lot of things to talk about and things that affect the characters that we love and progresses the story in many different ways. And it's taking us towards that end game that we're soon to hit. And the end game is Rogue One, and we are halfway through the Andor show. So
Oof. Yeah.
yikers. But
Yeah.
I'm sad that it's coming, almost coming on in a way. But
Truly,
we
yeah.
will talk about it for decades to come for sure. And if you haven't heard Tales of the Underworld, it's coming out on Fortnite. So that's why we made that
Woo.
reference. But I think
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. Parks is excited for it. We're always, as much as we love shows like Andor and the live action stuff, we always take it back to Star Wars animation. So
Yeah.
I'll probably talk about it on this channel. So make sure you don't go anywhere and you stay around for those conversations, whether Parks is in them or not. He's a busy man, but anytime Parks can come on, I'll have him on. We said in what trailer? Oh, we reviewed the Tales of the Empire trailer together last year.
Oh, right.
Where I
Yeah,
was
that
like,
was
"Hey, can
fun.
you?" And he was like, "Yeah, I can, but can we keep it under 30 minutes?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And we went on for like 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah. It was like a
So
long one. Yeah, but it
trust
was
me,
fun.
we
That was
we
a
can
fun one.
talk about Star Wars animation all day, but
Yeah.
it's currently 2:20 in the morning for Parks.
Ooh.
It's 1:20 in the morning for me.
Mhm.
We got work tomorrow, so we're both gonna end it here. But the conversation always continues on at Parks' YouTube channel, Artur Presents. You guys know him, and the conversations continue, of course, on my Star Wars page as well, all_Star Wars on Instagram. Parks, final thoughts. What do you have? What do you want to see next week? What do you think is going to happen next week? And where can the good people find you? I mean, I know I just shouted you out, but anything else you
Sure,
want to
yeah.
add? Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, final thoughts. Loving this show. We're halfway through the roller coaster ride, and in that sense, it's like the thing about a roller coaster is you can never ride it for the first time again, but you can always
Yeah.
get on it again and again and again afterwards. So I think for me, I'm gonna be rewatching these episodes when this whole season's out and done, a bunch, regardless of how fast it's going right now. But very excited for next week. I think next arc is going to be a huge one with the Gorman Massacre potentially. And then after that, it's like the final kind of end ramp into Rogue One. And that is a surreal thing to think about, that it's going to lead right into that. And then we'll be like, shoot, time to put on Rogue One. So
Right.
that's really cool. But yeah, really excited. Glad to be on here doing the show. You can follow me at youtube.com/at Artur Presents, or just Artur Presents, at Park Charmin on Twitter, or sorry, not Twitter. I don't really use Twitter anymore. Blue Sky, Instagram, and Twitch. And yeah, you can also catch me on here probably next week as well.
Yeah. No, definitely next week. But thank you to Parks for providing the chat that we had today and guiding us through the discussions. You did a great job. There's a lot of
Thank
cover,
you.
and you
Yes.
did it in
Ooh.
such a great and timely manner too. Because if it
If
was
this
me,
was like if this was like The Mandalorian, and just picture it was like the second episode where he's just helping the Jawas get an egg, that'd be so much simpler to describe than this.
yes, absolutely. It's something that I would be like, yeah, no problem. But it pays to have notes, and if I did notes, we'd probably be recording tomorrow, and the episode would be a day later to y'all. So shout out
Yeah.
Parks for real, because it's just a lot to take in, and then you want to go back and kind of reassess some things or digest some things, and then just
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
shooting away straight on Mike has its complete benefits, but there's also like, oh shoot, like, so Parks is the saving grace here with his notes. So thank you again.
Thank you. Yep.
Because I'd be sitting here be like, wait, what was that one character's name? And then trying to scrub back through the Disney Plus thing. But yeah, like I said, if you haven't already, subscribe, give us a like and comment what you thought about our opinions, or what you agree, disagree with, or any of the things that we didn't cover. Let us know in the comments, because we're always reading and commenting along with y'all. So let us know. And with that being said, until next time, I want to know what the heck they were doing with this. I forgot. We'll learn it for next time, but that'll be the official sign off. But
yeah, opening the door.
Open the door.
Like, come on in. Yeah,
come on in. Until next time, guys. May the force be with you. What did I say last week? What was the? Oh, Niamos.